A big reason for maintaining your accounting records is to provide you with better details for management decisions. Your crop production center details have no effect on your tax reporting information, but it plays a big part in your management of profitability. Your crop production center details allow you to dissect and analyze the different areas of your operation to determine what's working and what might need some adjustments to be more profitable. There are different components in your crop production center details. The profit centers are the different areas of your operation that generate financial activity, your different crops. Your production centers are the different locations that you are raising those crops, which are your fields or farms. The production year is the year of the production cycle. And the production series is something that you may or may not use on your crops. It's for crops that produce multiple crops in one year, such as hay, where you'd have several cuttings of hay. And then you have your lease agreements, which represent the individuals or companies that control each production. You as the owner or an operator and your landlords. Now let's go take a look at our crop production center details, and they are stored under Setup, Profit Production Centers, and Crop Production Center details. We're going to first take a look at some existing crop production center details and look at the different pieces in those details, and then we'll see how to create new ones. So we're going to take a look at our top one, which is an 18 corn, and the production center is Blacktop 800. So on each crop production center detail, you're going to have an abbreviation, and your abbreviation is going to have a format of each piece that's incorporated into this crop production center detail. Your crop production center details are a combination of the profit center, the production center, the year, the series, and a lease agreement. So in this one, it's representing the production year of 18, which we've identified in the production year. It's representing the profit center of corn, which is coming from our lookup of our different crop profit centers. And the production center is our Blacktop 300. So we've made an abbreviation, we have a name, and in this particular case, there's only one production for corn, and so the series remains at 0. If you were having a crop production center detail that represented hay, then you might have these same details, but the first one would be production series 1, the next one would be production series 2, and perhaps another one being 3, with all the other same details. In the upper right identifies the acres that are being grown on this particular combination. So it can be, as it is in this Blacktop 300, it's really representing 300 acres. But that production center is being divided into 2 different crops, so it becomes 2 different crop production center details, this one representing 110 acres of the 300. And then we identify our lease owner, which are the lease agreements that we've already created, and the lease agreements are a combination of our different crop owner operators. And we've identified that this is the CenterPoint grain lease agreement. We can click this little button, Show Lease Share, and that would show you the individuals and companies that are part of this particular lease agreement. And in this case, it's just one. CenterPoint Farm is the owner and operator of this particular field. We have our different active boxes. Active represents the crop production center details that you see on your list when you're doing activity, transaction activity. Accepting inputs, if this is checked, then it's allowing this information at the bottom under total production information to be updated. If it's unchecked, it would not allow any changes in this area. And accepting distributions is if you're using account distributions. If this is checked, then this particular detail is getting included in a distribution that's on a per acre basis of a type of distribution. And then down at the bottom, we have our production information. This is being updated by transaction activity on the transaction production if this is a company. So if one of the owner operators is identified as a company in CenterPoint, then the portion that's to that owner-operator is updated through the transaction and becomes transaction production. So our new crop production transaction is what updated the bushels on this particular crop production center detail, or it could have been sold from the field, and if that receipt transaction or customer invoice indicated the quantity and this crop production center detail, then this would be updated also. If we have a landlord that is not a company, then those bushels that come in through new production also, or through the receipt, would update calculated production. I'll show you one of those in a little bit on our Henry landlord. If there is an adjustment that you need to do on this production for some other reason, then you can enter bushels into here also, and that would update the actual production. And the actual production is the figure that you're going to be seeing when you're running crop production reports. If you want to use this crop production center details in production analysis and use a budget production to do some comparisons using what your projection is for the production on this production center detail, then you can enter a value here. And if you enter a value in here, then it calculates an actual to budget percentage. The harvest price down at the bottom is updated also from our production transactions based on the dollars that we assigned to the production divided by the quantity. And that updates our harvest price down here. And we're going to go ahead and save this entry and take a quick look at our one that is for our Henry landlord, which is a soybean under soybean Henry. And here we have the name of 18 again, the profit center soybean, and indicating the location, which is the Henry 120. It's growing the profit center of soybeans, production center, the year, again, no production series, and we have our size up here of 120 acres. And this time if we click on show lease share, now we see Henry landlord, and we see his share of the bushels and CenterPoint Farm and their share of the bushels. And if we look under total production, the company, which was CenterPoint Farm, updated transaction production. The landlord share updated calculated production, but the two of them still together equal the actual production and would be used in your crop production reports. And again, it updated our harvest price down at the bottom. On each crop production center detail, you also have additional notes if you want to keep some special notes on what happened on that production. And now we're going to create a new one. So we can either click our new button down in the lower left to create a new production and enter all this information manually of the abbreviation we want, the name, and all of the other details. This would always remain blank when you're creating a new production that's coming in from your crop production transactions or from a sale from the field to update this information. Or we can edit an existing detail by highlighting a detail and click edit. We can delete only if this detail has not been used in a transaction activity. If it's used in a transaction activity, you would get a warning that it cannot be deleted. You can make a new crop production center detail by highlighting an existing one and click copy, but I wouldn't suggest doing that if you have transaction production information in the that particular detail. That would get copied also, which you probably don't want happening to that new crop production center detail. Then instead, use your new button. If you have two details in here by mistake that represent the same one, you can use the combine by highlighting the one you want to get rid of, click the combine button, and then select the one you want it to be merged into. Our mass update button is to update the details in our crop production center details of our checkboxes of active, accepting inputs, or accepting distributions. So if we click our mass update, we can go next, and here's our three different options. If we wanted to update accepting distributions, we can highlight that option, That's something that you'll do frequently when you're running, if you have account distributions, and before you run those distributions for the new year, you want to make sure that you have the right year marked as accepting distributions so those distributions get done correctly. So we're going to go next, and we've got all of these different details selected, and we want to change accepting distributions. So if we wanted to say that we want to turn these off, we don't want these as part of accepting distribution, it's 2019 now, we want these no longer set as yes, we're going to change this to no. Click next. That gives us our screen indicating our old accepting distribution and new, and now it's marked as no. And we could go next and ask, these changes will be saved to the database. Are you sure? You would say yes and finish. And now if we go into any one of those details, the accepting distribution is now not turned on that particular crop production center detail, and as well as the other ones also. Now we're going to create a new set of crop production center details for 2019 and click New Year. There are two ways to do that. The first time that you do this, when you have no crop production center details, is start with all production centers. So instead of copying from existing, because you wouldn't have any, we're going to start with all production centers, and I'll show you how to do that. You're going to go next. It's first going to ask you what kind of format do you want your abbreviation and your names to be using, because it's going to be updating this for you. And you have a choice of 1 to 8. So on the first one, it's indicating that it's going to put the year, and then the crop, and then the production center. If we chose one of these other ones, it gives you a description here at the bottom also. This one's going to use the year, the crop, the series, and the lease agreement, and the production center. And then the abbreviation you'd want to do likewise, so it is equal, only this is a shorter character string. So you choose the format that it's going to most be what you want to see on those names and abbreviations, and click next. We get our grid, and in this grid we can now identify what we want on each one of these different fields. So it already filled in the name of our production center and the abbreviation of the name. And if we want to update all of these with a piece of information at one time, you can highlight all of them like that, or I could hold down my control key and hunt and peck of the ones that I wanted to update. So right now we're going to highlight all of them, and we're going to update the production year on all of them to 2019. And I click update, and now you can see that it updated each one of them in the abbreviation and the name with the production year of 2019 and filled in my year. Now I could go down manually and put what I want in each one of these different fields for the crop that I'm growing, or I can again highlight a couple of them at a time. Let's go like this, and I'm going to change my profit center to corn and update. And it updated those details that I had highlighted and updated the name and the abbreviation. And then we're also going to want, when we have all of those completed, we're also going to want to select our lease. And again, you could do multiple and do your change and update, or I can fill in each one as I needed to. On this one, actually, it was for Henry Landlord. And then I can go down and enter whatever the lease agreement is on each one of those details. When I'm done, I would click next, and that would create my new set of details for 19. I'm going to click cancel and not let it update this, because I'm going to show you the other way also of using copying from existing. So we're going to cancel out of there, and this time we're going to do new year and do copy existing. And now you have a filter of identifying what do I want to copy. So once you have several crop production center detail years in here, it might be that you want to copy not from last year, but from the previous year if you're doing a crop rotation of every other year. So I'm going to pick my year equal to 2018, and that updated my details for all of those details that had 18. In addition, I'm going to filter by a crop, because all the ones that I have corn in right now, I'm going to make those soybean. So it'll just be easier to manage if I do one crop at a time in this particular instance. I'm going to go next. And again, I get to pick my format out of that format 1 through 8. And it gives me my grid. So now I can highlight all of my details. First of all, change my production year to 2019 and update. It updated my detail on abbreviation and name. Now I'm going to update the profit center to soybean and update. And I am done with that detail. Unless on my blacktop, perhaps I want to change the number of acres that I'm going to do between the two different crops. I could update that if I needed to, or any other detail that I might need. But at this point, I'm ready to go next and finish. And now it added my 3 new details for 19 for soybean. And now I could go and do my new year again, start from existing, do my year of 2018. And this time I want to filter for the soybean, because I'm going to turn all the soybean ones to corn 19. Go next, my format, select all of them, update to my year of 2019, update, and next do my update for profit center, which this time will be corn, update, and I am done. I could again change any details that might be different for this year than copying from last year, but I am ready to go next and finish. And now I have both my new crop production center details for corn and soybean. So those are now ready for our activity in transactions. And if we needed to, we could use our mass update and inactivate the 18 if we no longer want those on our list for new transaction activity. In transaction activity, when you select one of these crop production center details, such as the 18 soybean Harvey 85, it automatically will assign that production year, that profit center, and that production center series, so that you don't have to enter all those individual pieces manually. Entering the crop production center detail will do all of it at one time.